to Cooking with Bread and Roses Community Kitchen. My name is Maria, and today we are talking about greens. Fall is quickly coming upon us, and our fall greens are coming back to the farmers markets and to our grocery stores. Now, when we talk about greens, I tend to put greens in two different categories: our delicate leafy greens and then our hardy leafy greens. Our delicate greens tend to be things you can find in salads. Lettuces, spinach, arugula. These are normally pretty easy to prepare because you can just eat them straight, no cooking required. Then you have our heftier, heartier leafy greens, such as kale, collards, Swiss chard, and bok choy. Today, we're specifically going to cook with bok choy and talk about the ways that we can cook lots of different types of hearty greens. The nice thing is, once you know how to cook it in one way, you can cook all different types of greens using that same cooking method. So first of all, bok choy is an Asian green. It's got this lovely bulb shape and has different leaves attached. So the first thing we're going to do to prepare this green is to simply pull off all of the pieces. Now, I've washed this bok choy, but you want to check for dirt near the core to make sure no dirt is still there. If so, you can just give it another wash. All right, so we have these nice pieces. Now, you'll notice with bok choy that the bottom is a little bit harder. It's like crunchier, almost like celery, but the top is this nice leafy green. This means that the green will take a little bit longer to cook than say kale or collards, just because it's heftier, it's heartier. So one method we're going to practice today is called blanching. Blanching means that we put it into a pot of hot boiling water to almost par cook it. Then we're going to pull it out and put it straight into a nice cold bath of ice water. So my water is almost hot, but I'm going to turn this up so our water boils while we talk a little bit more about blanching. So this process of putting it into hot water and then straight into an ice bath is giving it a little bit of a head start in the cooking process, and it's shocking the green. So greens like bok choy or kale, Swiss chard, it can have a bitterness to it. That's one of the reasons why we don't always eat raw bok choy or raw kale, though you can. So by putting it into the hot water, it will take some of that bitterness out of it. It will also start to cook it, but just briefly. Now, the amount of time that we put it in the boiling water will depend on our green. So again, bok choy, like I said, it's crunchy, right? It's hard. So this is going to take a little bit longer than something that's a little bit softer, like a mustard green or a collard green. Then, by shocking it in the cold water, that is going to cool it down really quickly so it stops the cooking process. We don't want that green to continue to cook over and over and over. So again, in this bowl, I have ice cubes floating in cold water. Okay, this is just really, really cold water to shock those greens. All right, we have come to a boil over here. You can see it steaming, and I'm just gonna take all of our greens and plop it right in, stems and all. Now you can take a spoon or some tongs and just move it around so it's all submerged into the water. Again, for kale, collards, the top parts of Swiss chard, I would say just give it 30 seconds. Just a quick par cook before pulling them out. These have that harder bottom, so I'm going to leave it for about 45 seconds to a minute. Okay, really, really start to tenderize those greens. The other great thing about blanching is that this method of hot to cold is allowing the vibrant green color to come out of the greens and stay green. It won't turn a brown color. Alrighty. So I'm just gonna let them drip a little bit and put it straight into the ice bath. Beautiful. Okay, again, submerge those greens so they get really cold. This isn't gonna take very long to cool down. At this point, if you are ready to cook, you can cook with these greens, and that's what we're going to do. But say you wanted to save these for later, no problem. Take them out of the ice water, towel dry them, and then put them in your fridge. This is a really great way to meal plan because you've par cooked the greens, especially if they're starting to go bad and you need to use them right away. Blanch them, cool them, dry them off, and put them in your refrigerator to cook another day. Or you can put them on a tray and put them in your freezer so you can cook them from frozen later. A few different methods. So I have my paper towels, and I'm going to pull out those greens and put them directly onto the paper towel. You know that they're ready when the greens are actually cool to the touch, right? They're not hot anymore. Now look at how green and vibrant these are. Isn't that beautiful? If we kept cooking these too long, they would start to turn browner and browner and browner. Remember that our nutrients are in our colors. So the more color is there, the more nutrients are intact. The longer we cook something, the more of the nutrients dissolve from that green. All right, so I'm just gonna towel dry those a little bit, and then we're going to prepare for cooking. Now, greens are kind of an empty slate. You can flavor them however you want to. Today we're going to focus on aromatics, or ingredients that give lots of punch or flavor at the beginning of your dish, but also adding acids like vinegar and lemon juice to brighten up the dish. These are two simple ways to make greens really tasty. So, aromatics: onions, garlic, ginger, other spices. These are all really fragrant aromatics. Today, since our bok choy comes from Asia, we're gonna go with some garlic, which I have chopped up right here, and a little bit of ginger, okay? This is fresh ginger that you can find at the grocery store. And to prepare this, I'm first going to use a small knife to just peel off the skin. Okay, there's this brown skin that we don't want in our dish. Okay, from there, you can chop off a little piece. And then one easy way to make this really, really small, like a mince, is to take a little cheese grater. This is a tiny one, but you can use a big cheese grater and just grate the ginger. Oh my gosh, makes it so simple, right? You can also do this with cloves of garlic. If you don't want to mince them, use a little grater or a zester, and it makes it really easy. Now, sometimes when I go to the grocery store and buy ginger, I'll buy a big root. I put that root, I peel everything off the root, then I put the root in the freezer. Holds up really well. Then you can still grate your ginger from frozen and it will hold up a lot longer. All right, so we just have a little bit of ginger and garlic in here. I also have some salt that we'll add to those greens, again, to bring out the flavor. And olive oil, okay? That's the best way to start our pan, is with a little bit of fat so that we can cook our greens nicely. So I'm gonna drizzle about a tablespoon or two of olive oil, just enough to coat that pan, okay, not too much. And we're gonna get this going at about high to medium high heat. In the meantime, I'm gonna take these greens, and you can saute them like large greens right here. But if you want them more bite-sized, you can just put them together and chop them into bite-sized pieces. The smaller the pieces, the faster they'll cook. I think this is really important for our large leafy greens like kale and collards. You obviously don't want to cook a big leaf, but if you chop it up into smaller pieces, you can really easily saute that. Again, bok choy is kind of fun because you can play with the whole leaf and mixing that into your different dishes or using smaller pieces. Bok choy goes great over rice. It also goes great with meat, so I would recommend a lean protein like chicken or lean beef. If you wanted to add meat as with your aromatics, you could saute a little bit of ground chicken or ground beef in your pan first with your garlic and ginger, and then add your greens to it. It's really tasty. All right, this pan is getting hot, so I'm going to start with those aromatics and just pop them into the pan. Wonderful, you can start to hear that sizzle. I'm just going to move them around in the oil. One of the reasons we call them aromatics is because they're fragrant, right? I can smell the ginger, I can smell the garlic. It's a great combination. These don't take very long. We're just going to look for that slight browning. If it's browning too quickly, turn down that heat. Then we're going to add those greens. Beautiful, and give it a toss. All right, so while this is cooking for just a few minutes, I want to talk about acids. Today I have rice vinegar. This is a vinegar that's literally made from rice. It's often used in Asian cooking, so that's why I'm using it with our bok choy today. Now, adding a little bit of acid at the end of a dish, particularly with greens, really adds some brightness and adds extra flavor without adding a lot of salt. So, other great options: balsamic vinegar, lemon juice or lime juice, apple cider vinegar has like a little sweetness to it, and that would work perfectly. Even soy sauce. Soy sauce has a little bit more salt content, so you probably want to remove your regular salt instead, but it really adds a richness and flavor. So I'm going to add a little bit of that salt now, just about a pinch. And then I'm going to drizzle about a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of vinegar into that pan. It's totally to your taste. Now, how do you know when the greens are done? You're going to base it off of the tenderness. So if you like them a little softer, cook them longer. If you like them a little crunchy, they may be done now. So I'm just going to take one of these fat pieces on the bottom, the crunchier side. I'm going to pop it in my mouth. That's perfect for me. I want a little bit more vinegar. I want some of the brightness and the acid to come out a little bit more, so I'm going to add it. Again, cooking is about experimenting and tasting. You have to taste your food to know if it's going to taste good or not. All right, and there we are, folks. Just a very quick saute of this bok choy. This is a perfect side dish with anything that you want. You can pair it with rice or quinoa. Again, pair it with some meat, or add other vegetables to make it more of a stir fry. Again, greens are versatile and greens are healthy for you. They have lots of those plant proteins, vitamin K, a little bit of vitamin B. So I encourage you to incorporate them into your other meals. On this blog post, I'm leaving you a little cheat sheet of types of greens, different aromatics and acids that go really well with those greens, and a suggested way to cook them. I hope that you will use it and try it at home and find some different flavors and greens that you really enjoy with your family. We'll see you next time.